Good morning.
President Tinubu approves the operationalization of the Food System Coordinating Unit as mechanism for food security.
The rainy season is upon us now, and we have urged the state governors to assiduously evacuate the fertilizer so that it can be of benefit to our teeming farmers.
Senate approves extended implementation of 2023 Appropriation Acts and supplementary budget to 31st December 2024.
This extension was necessary to allow for the full implementation of the capital projects contained in the budget and generally improve the lives and well-being of the Nigerian people.
NIPR at 60 colloquium. Minister of Information reveals federal government's plans to launch National Value Charter.
As public communicator, one of the first things that you should do is to ensure that whatever you are saying, you are telling people the truth and nothing but the truth.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall focus on preventing drug abuse in Nigeria.
Drug abuse is the consumption of drugs, including alcohol, tobacco, and illicit substances, in a manner that is harmful to oneself or to others.
Globally, drug use prevalence is put at around 55%, and in Nigeria it is 14.4%, which means approximately 3 times the global average. Also, Nigeria's drug use prevalence among youths is 27.7%.
And the common drugs are abused in Nigeria are cannabis, opioids, including cough syrups, and codeine. And this has made drug abuse-related deaths in Nigeria alarmingly high, with a significant increase in drug-related violence and crimes.
Weekly, the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, gives a highlight of their seizure, and it will surprise you that people go very far and take risk to get involved in illicit trafficking and drug abuse.
And on Tuesday, the 18th of this month, it was shocking and revealing when operatives of the agency raided and bust a snake-guarded shrine in Ego, Benin City, Edo State, used to store drugs. At least 2 ladies were arrested during the intelligence-led operation after the big black snake guarding the shrine was demobilized.
Different quantities of illicit substances such as methamphetamine, loud, Colorado, and Arizona, all strong strains of cannabis with a total weight of 8.743 kilograms, were pulled out from the deep hole dug in the wall of the shrine building.
In the same week, NDLEA officers in Lagos intercepted a carefully packaged consignment of 8.2 kilograms of methamphetamine at a motor park in Mazamaza or Jaw area of the state. The highly addictive illicit substance, also called ice or crystal meth, was packed in imported Dunkin' Turtle Love chocolate wraps and then concealed in the casing of 3 loudspeakers.
At an event on Wednesday, 26 June, which was International Day of Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking, the chairman of the NDLEA, Brigadier General Mohammed Buba Marwa, retired, revealed that the agency in the last 3 years has destroyed 1,057 hectares of cannabis farms in Nigeria. What is Nigeria's collaboration in global efforts to curtail illicit drugs?
Well, that is begging for answer, the question begging for answer. A silent epidemic that's ravaging our communities, that is destroying lives and threatening the very fabric of our society, the menace of drug abuse in Nigeria.
From the streets of Lagos to the villages of Kano, drug abuse has become a national crisis, affecting millions of young people, families, and communities. The statistics are staggering, like we earlier mentioned, and with Nigeria ranking among the highest in drug use worldwide. The consequences are dire, leading to addiction, mental health issues, crime, and even death. Join us as we delve into the world of drug abuse in Nigeria, exploring the causes, the role of trafficking and cartels, the impact on public health and safety, and the efforts of law enforcement agency, as well as healthcare professionals and community leaders to combat this scourge.
Well, we will hear from experts that will examine the strategies and solutions needed to address this growing menace. It's a critical conversation for the future of our nation's health, security, and prosperity. Welcome to the program. I'm Victor Azu. We are reaching you on the network service of the NTA.
And I'm Henry John. I join my colleague Victor to welcome you to the program this Friday. Chukwudi Okolugbaja will join us soon for newspaper review. But for now, let's let Musa Abubakar feed us with the latest on the morning news. Musa, good morning to you.
Good morning, Henry. Good morning, Victor. Here's the news. Goods worth millions of naira have been lost following a late evening fire at the Karu market. Eyewitness accounts say the fire began at about 7:30 on Thursday night, raising shops and goods ranging from household items and consumables.
The way and manner they assess, they allocate these spaces is something that, of course, if a situation like this happens, you should expect what is happening. Even when the security were here, even when the firefighters are here, they could not have access to the road in order to quench the fire. That was why the fire keep on spreading until billions of naira were destroyed.
To boost agricultural productivity, strengthen the economy by creating opportunities in the real sector of agriculture, manufacturing and construction, as well as provide urgent economic relief for Nigerians. President Bola Tinubu has approved the immediate rollout of the National Construction and Household Support Program to cover all geopolitical zones of the country. Under the program, the Sokoto-Badagry Highway, the Trans-Saharan and the Lagos-Calabar coastal highways are being accorded priority attention. These are parts of the resolutions of the National Economic Council NEC meeting on Thursday.
State governors to assiduously evacuate the fertilizer so that it can be of benefit to our teeming farmers. Fertilizer is to be distributed free of charge.
And in addition to that, we're looking at ways of essentially improving the mechanism by which payments are made so that they can be made quicker.
The federal government and the African Union is working towards providing a sustainable single-digit loans for micro, small and medium enterprises to access affordable credit, which remains a major challenge facing Africa. Deputy Chief of Staff organized by the federal government and Africa.
Outside this continent is here. These facts provide us with the evidence that if MSMEs prosper, Nigeria prospers. And we can say the same about Africa and indeed the entire world.
Senate has granted approval to extend the implementation of the capital components of the 2023 Appropriation Act and the supplementary to 31st December 2024. The amendment bills were given expeditious consideration as requested by President Tinubu on the first day of plenary after the summer break.
This extension was necessary to allow for the full implementation of the capital projects contained in the budget, particularly those infrastructure projects intended to improve commerce, address challenges with security, healthcare, and education, and generally improve the lives and well-being of the Nigerian people.
The House of Representatives has considered and passed two bills from President Bola Tinubu to extend implementation of the 2023 budget and the 2023 supplementary budget to 31st December 2024. Both bills generated debate on the floor but eventually received expeditious approval at the Committee on Supply, chaired by Speaker Tajuddin Abbas.
To extend implementation of the Appropriation Act 2023 and the Supplementary Appropriation Act 2023 to 31st December 2024.
This is to make life easy for everyone to complete the project because we don't want abandoned projects.
Our National Value Charter, a document for national reorientation, will be launched by President Bola Tinubu as Nigeria embarked on another journey of national values rebirth. The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, disclosed this as panelists at the NIPR Diamond Anniversary Colloquium in Abuja.
One of the first things that you should do is to ensure that whatever you are saying, you are telling people the truth and nothing but the truth. That is why whatever I know that I don't have any information about something, I dare not speak. It is better that I keep my mouth shut than to reproduce ignorance.
Those are the highlights of the news at this time. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Victor and Ehiri after the commercial break. Please don't go away.
The federal government of Nigeria wants vandals of national assets, electricity transmission towers, cables and other facilities to desist from this act of sabotage. Vandalism is a serious crime punishable under the law. Vandalizing electrical equipment will affect millions of Nigerians, including your loved ones. Remember that national assets belong to all of us, hence the need to protect them. Report all cases of suspicious movement around electrical facilities to security agencies. When you see something, say something. This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation in collaboration with the National Counter-Terrorism Center, NCTC, Office of the National Security Advisor.
In the heat of the summer, walking on the road feels like walking on hot coals. How do I cope with this heat?
And how do I cope with that bad odor?
By staying 5 degrees cooler.
Body odor is caused by germs, and on hot days, the sweating and the odor are more. That's why you need to get the new improved Dettol Cool Soap, which offers up to 5 degrees instant cooling sensation and protects you from 99.9% odor-causing germs.
We are passionate about two things in Nigeria. The first is football. The second is our rice. And nobody celebrates like a Nigerian. So, for every goal scored, every mark made, you can be sure to always come back home to rice. Celebrate with Nigerian Premium Big Bull Rice, homegrown just like you. Big Bull Rice, tasty rice, nourished you.
The new Milo 3-in-1 Milky and Creamy is truly milky and contains calcium. So, no need to add milk for that rich, creamy cup, which helps to nourish and energize your kids. Milo 3-in-1 is such a smart choice. Milo, energy to go further.
From Nestle.
A good farmer is a craftsman of the highest order. It is said, great farmer, great nation. No farmer, no nation. Yes, let's set the ball rolling to build that great Nigeria where good food is in abundance, affordable and easily accessible. The Renewed Hope Initiative, RHI, an initiative of the First Lady of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, CON, is aligning with the vision and aspiration of the administration of President Bola Tinubu, GCFR, and is organizing the Every Home a Garden competition. The competition is under the scope of agriculture of the Renewed Hope Initiative. For the competition, women are encouraged to immediately plant a garden at home, such that the harvest can provide adequate food on their table and enough to give their neighbor. This competition is open to only women. She must be a first-time farmer. The garden must be in her home, and it is open to women in every state of the Federation and the FCT. Interested participants should do a 30-second video and a picture of the garden, which indicates its location, to the office of the First Ladies of their various states. The winner of this competition will be announced in December 2024, and the winner of the competition goes home with 20 million naira. Women, join the train. Be part of the food revolution in Nigeria. What are you waiting for? Let's get to work. This message is by the Renewed Hope Initiative, RHI, an initiative of the First Lady of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, CON.
Nigeria means a lot to me.
And Nigeria means peaceful cohesion.
My country.
We continue to pray, and then hopefully we will come to understand that unity of purpose, unity of living together.
Our ethnic beliefs and background and culture is our strength.
Ever since the amalgamation period of 1914 to date, about 109 years ago, the people of Nigeria live very peacefully with one another.
I think diversity helps a lot to enhance robust development in Nigeria.
All over the country, you have so many ethnic groups, over 250. That is enough to tell you that this is a blessed country, and God has kept, together as one indivisible entity.
Euro 2024, live on Sporty TV.
Thanks for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria. Up next for us is newspaper review.
right, I got Chukudi Okoli with us for the news per review segment. Chukudi, good morning to you.
Good morning, Yeri. How are you doing?
Very well, and you?
Could be better, but as usual, we thank God for small mercies.
Of course.
Hello, Victor. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing too?
I'm all right.
Sound all right, please.
I guess I haven't recovered from the NIPR at 60 dinner.
It's okay.
You had a great time, and
it
then
happens.
You want us to begin to feel bad about that? By the way, I don't like the sound of Chooks the man. I think Chooks the boy sounds better.
Thank you.
Maybe today that is clean shaven, we can do that.
I'm not the subject. Let's go at it.
All right, let's begin from here this morning. Let's begin with the Vanguard. And it leads with this major headline: minimum wage. Let each state negotiate what it can pay. That's according to governors. And you can find details of that on page 5. It has several riders. Tinubu, NEC, silent on minimum wage. Public, private workers get restive over delayed minimum wage. That's according to Labour. Want Labour leaders to push for quick resolution. Lament hardship becoming unbearable with basic necessities no longer affordable. We are not happy with Tinubu's slow motion. That's according to SANU, Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities. And then a number of stories up above the nameplate. Pro-Wike Group faults Fubara's claim on bombing of Rivers Hotel. That's according to that's on page 12. Police probe death of ex-Konga boss Nick Imudia. That's on page 6, a sad one. Oil theft, surveillance operatives uncover oil bunkering camps in Bayelsa State. That one is on page 35. Too many stories. We'll just take a couple more and rest it here. Tinubu will get our approval for new presidential jet if he makes requests. That's according to Senate, and you find the story on page 8. But before I drop this, let's take a look at Mr. and Mrs. You are broke and it's raining heavily. Does that mean you didn't save for the rainy day? That's according to Mrs. I did. The economy drowned it. That's according to Mr. Yemre.
All right, let's see what the Nation has this morning. The lead story here says Tinubu rallies governors on massive food production. President backs urgent result-oriented agri plan. Details on page 4. And just beside that headline, we have federal government slashes CNG conversion cost by half. Surveillance operatives uncover oil theft camps. All of that on page 4 of the Nation, and that's all because this picture here of the map of Nigeria, and of course the roads to be embarked on by this administration. It's tagged Federal Ministry of Works Renewed Hope Legacy Road Infrastructure Project. You want to see all of that? A copy of the Nation will guide you. The leadership also has that picture, and of course details of the road infrastructure projects also right here. So we'll look away from that and look above the masthead. We have, despite fresh talks, ASU adamant on strike. Riders, Vastis chapters mobilize for action. Say we will not allow federal government to destroy university system. Just beside the masthead, bandits abduct 47 Zamfara residents. Details on page 17. If you want to get the details of that. And this is a trending story. Student loan application postponed for 14 days. You want to find out why. All right, so that's the much we can take on the front pages of the papers we have. Chukudi.
Yeah, Jerry, minimum wage is becoming another major issue. At a point, it seemed as if it has been, taken care of. But now, it's resurfacing and becoming a big issue here and there.
It's not resurfacing. It never went under. It's been at the surface. It's just that, workers were expecting to hear, from the president, and then the recent call by the president for more negotiation is what is making it look like, oh, people are beginning to speak up again. And of course, the calls of the workers are valid. Some have called it slow motion. Some have said, well, there's a delay, and because the economy is biting really hard, and the longer it takes, the more people would suffer. Some may die, some may get ill. So many things happening. So I'm just looking at, for example, the story of Nick Mordia, and looking at what he'll probably have owned. And yet, we're talking about the report yesterday said he committed suicide. So imagine a civil servant who still earns 30,000 naira in this economy. So you expect them to begin to make some comments. It's taking too long,
Well, but linking it to Nick Mudia may not work, because you never know why Nick took his life, if he did.
I'm just trying to say that even in comfort, people are distressed at this time. So I'm saying in discomfort, imagine what you're going through. That's just my comparison, really.
I can see that there is intent on your part to banish me from discussion. But because the parrot is in the studios, I got to talk. The minimum wage thing is no easy task for both the authorities and the workers. It's going to continue like this till something happens at the last minute when people have dissipated energy. That is what I foresee. The governors are saying, for instance, that each state should negotiate what it can pay.
Which is
I want
fair enough.
my dear Nyere to get more money. Thank God she's a federal worker. You guys always do better than the rest. But the truth remains that getting that money to pay is not as easy as it could be for some entities. Some of the school owners are saying if they extend it to us, what they are saying is that we reduce teachers by half. Some who are managing a little, it's actually entrepreneurship, but they employ a few people. So there's this idea that the office is bubbling with both owner and workers and all that. They too are saying, are you talking about minimum wage for federal civil service workers, or are you including us? It is not an easy thing. It is going the way it would go. But at the end of the day, we're going to have a solution. It's about people meeting people halfway. That's what I foresee, But it's not going to go away until it is resolved.
But what do you say to governors, asking to negotiate on their own, individually?
Some people have disagreed with that because,
by the way, that won't stand if it's minimum wage, because that's a law.
Well, minimum wage should carry through.
Yeah,
because they are saying
want to negotiate without making it.
This is the threshold. We wouldn't want you to drop human life, below or under, So Victor has a point there. But ability to pay the minimum wage
is the big deal.
It's not going to be wished away by that which the law validates. So at the end of the day, they have to meet one another. Okay, let's treat them as two parties, each other halfway. They have to.
When people talk about ability to pay, when it's coming from the side of government or some big organizations, private organizations, I worry. And a lot of people worry too, because you need to be concerned about the welfare of your worker.
Yes.
What they deliver. We're talking about productivity. I think some days ago you mentioned that. We're talking about increase in minimum wage, we're not talking about productivity. If a worker is not, comfortable to a certain level, you don't expect productivity from that worker. So, you don't expect someone to probably walk a long distance because he cannot afford transport fare, and then come to work and still be able to deliver. He will be sleeping. He will be tired. He will be exhausted. Or someone who cannot eat, who cannot pay the children's school fees, or you have a sick child at home and you cannot pay medical bills, and you expect the person to deliver. So you must consider the state of your worker. The person needs to be comfortable to a certain level.
I don't know.
So that is why it is important to talk about how much the worker receives.
I have a way of enjoying myself anytime you sit there. You know, I see an angry journalist, you know, sometimes. But the problem is that whatever volume of vexation you build into this argument, the other side has its own argument. That's why I say, at the end of the day, they have to. And let us please quickly say this, that you want welfare for workers doesn't mean that water supply is going to have to suffer. Because that is also welfare for workers. What am I saying? Infrastructure will still go on being developed even as we give money to. So it is appropriating, you know, in a rather delicate manner. I've not been in government, but when you sit over, you know, manning a few...
we just need to think outside the box.
Look
for ways to generate more income, block leakages as much as possible.
Yes.
Bloated costs.
Exactly.
Yeah, what you're saying is let them prioritize welfare for workers. Fine, but it's delicate balancing still. Well, it's not as easy as you think.
But before we let you go, because the day is fast spent.
We've all thrown it into minimum wage.
Mickey Mudia, you know, one begins to wonder why a seemingly thriving, you know, CEO in the private sector, doing well, not doing badly, would want to take his own life. And the reports are that he made a few calls, called his daughter, called his brother to ask him, you know, why, how he should distribute his, I think his wealth, maybe in his charge. Yeah. When somebody begins to ask those sort of questions, people should worry.
You said it's seemingly thriving. I like the
but the calls adverb, he made. The calls he made.
Yes.
Now, to his brother, to some friends, to his daughter, should ring the alarm.
Yeah, fine. So I ask, was he lonely in a crowd? Many of us are loners, even in multitudes.
I agree.
If you don't get close to a man or woman, you don't really get to know what their headaches in the world, you know, are. He looked prosperous. He looked like somebody who was thriving. But you don't know the demons he had been fighting. And when I say demons, I'm not talking really spiritually. I'm talking about the little things he was struggling with in life. And anyway, it is not all the time that when they dress so well like Victor, that it also means that they are mentally stable. We talked about mental health issues the other time, which we're not looking into in this country enough.
We should. Unfortunately,
we have to.
We don't have a lot of time.
We lost him. It's unfortunate.
We have to talk about again. We've done that before
and
here.
Many more people
and we should do it
are
again.
on the verge of taking their own lives, even as we speak this minute. And it's important that we address some of the issues that, you know, are triggering some of these mental instability, depression, and all of that.
There should never be another man-head Nagarawa attitude toward these things.
Chukwudi Okoli-Ubaja, thank you very much for coming on Good Morning Nigeria. We'll see you again on Monday.
I'll be here by his grace.
All right, the conversation proper begins after this break. Please stay with us.
From the Atlantic across the savannah to the Sahara, we rise, a land of the free, we know they tire. We dream great, our spirit is undying.
Resilient, rooted like palm tree, we sway in colors, we turn dark into light, we make solutions, we ignite passion, yeah. Ethnicity is unique, we are more than just a nation.
We are Nigeria, we are Nigeria, strengthening unity, we know they carry lives. We are Nigeria, we are Nigeria, together live the dream of a land with great destiny. We are Nigeria.
I am the real Nigerian. Brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
In the heat of the summer, Walking on the road feels like walking on hot coals.
How do I cope with this heat?
And how do I cope with that bad odor?
By staying 5 degrees cooler.
Body odor is caused by germs, and on hot days, the sweating and the odor are more. That's why you need to get the new improved Dettol Cool soap, which offers up to 5 degrees instant cooling sensation and protects you from 99.9% odor-causing germs.
Give us a vibes. Ani ma sha on lo mo yen. Puff pass ati ko mo je. E pa te wa te ro fo mo yen.
Tiny, talk true. You are a first model, you are a fashion designer, you are a gagbero too.
Bisola J, 你是最好的人，我最特别喜欢你。
Ma? As I dey look her mouth, I want to eat Chinese. Name something you check every day.
My phone, my email, my body.
Name a red flag in a guy.
His body odor.
His body odor.
You have to move from the point where you protect and defend your religion to a point where you also recognize the rights of the other person, of the other religion, and protect it. So if I am protecting my own territory and my own people and trying to emphasize their rights and protect their rights, I should also be thinking about how to protect the rights of the others.
Both Islam and Christianity recognize and defer to God, and both recognize the temporariness of the life of this world, and that ultimately we all go back to God for the day of reckoning, when everybody will render an account of his life on this temporary abode.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Euro 2024, live on Sporty TV.
This is Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the NTA. And to start our conversation, which is on preventing drug abuse in Nigeria, let's quickly see this background report put together by our correspondent, Ekene Ndulwe.
Coyote is using marijuana.
Drug abuse has emerged as a pervasive menace in Nigeria, posing significant challenges to public health, social cohesion, and economic development. Data from the National Bureau of Statistics and the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency shows that approximately 14.3 million Nigerians between the ages of 15 and 64 abuse drugs, representing about 14.4% of the population in that age bracket. These statistics underscores the widespread nature of the issue, highlighting challenges related to addiction, health consequences, and socioeconomic implications. The consequences are profound, ranging from increased crime rates and violence to health complications such as HIV/AIDS transmission and mental health disorders. The chairman, National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, Brigadier General Buba Marwa, at the occasion of this year's World Drug Day, said the agency is working hard to cut off drug supplies, deny users availability and access. He noted that between 2021 and 2024, the agency has arrested over 52,000 drug traffickers, including 48 barons. Also, 9,000 of the suspects have been convicted in court, with a recorded seizure of 7.6 million kilograms of assorted illicit substances. Despite the onslaught against drug traffickers in Nigeria, drug abuse has persisted, with users adopting new unconventional psychoactive substances to replicate the effects of illegal substances like cannabis, cocaine, and ecstasy. It is for this reason that the federal government is now prioritizing prevention mechanisms with commitments to allocate adequate resources and foster partnerships for greater impact. How can Nigeria prevent drug abuse? What are the partnerships needed to achieve this goal? On this episode of Good Morning Nigeria, experts shall be discussing preventing drug abuse in Nigeria.
All right, thank you very much, Ekene for that background report. And joining us right here in the studio to discuss preventing drug abuse in Nigeria. Let me first introduce here in the studio Shadrach Imudia, Shadrach Haruna, is Secretary to National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA. A pleasure to welcome you. I almost mixed up your name there.
Well, thank you very much. He sounds like somebody from Edo State.
All right. And
thank you.
We have also been joined here in the studio by Dr. Asekame Joy, Senior Registrar, Behavioral Medicine, National Hospital, Abuja. Thank you for coming on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Yeah, mate.
All right. Also joining us for the conversation right here in the studio is the Managing Director, Vagada Specialist Rehabilitation Center. A pleasure to have you, Dr. Hope Omeza.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians.
Good morning. You're welcome. Also joining us for the conversation in our Benin Network studio is Dr. Okonkwo Bartholomew Chukwemeka. He's a Senior Registrar, Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, Benin City. Many thanks for joining us, Doctor.
So much. Good morning, Nigeria.
Let's get the conversation rolling. We're talking preventing drug abuse, but we can't begin to talk about prevention if we don't know what the causes are. And so from your field operations, what would you say are the major causes of drug abuse in Nigeria? Talking about why people abuse it, sources, how do they get it, how does it get into the country, is it where they farm them, do they produce it somewhere? What have you found?
Well, thank you very much. When you want to know the causes of drug abuse, it's deep-rooted, some sociological and some peer pressure, and of course globalization of a wannabe culture. And of course it could also include poverty and lack of employment. You see, all these factors come to bear on individuals, and some of them actually respond by trying to go away from the present misery by taking drugs, which will give them a temporary relief, but of course has a long-lasting effect, which will result into dependency on drugs. So I think the source of these drugs is also, of course, cannabis. Cannabis is the most common drug, and the most common drug of abuse. It can be grown anywhere, and it's well grown in the country. In so many parts of the country, we have cannabis farms, which we have tried to destroy, and we have destroyed so many acres of cannabis farms lately. So the source of others like methamphetamine is now produced in the country as well. And we have a huge cache of methamphetamine called Mpurimiri, which is being produced locally. And that again is in huge supply. And Nigeria, being a transit country in the past, has now become a user country as well. So many drugs passing through Nigeria like cocaine, heroin, they are also being used in the country. In fact, lately we have seen the use of fentanyl in the country, which is a deadly drug. And just this 2024 World Drug Report, it shows that there's another opioid derivative called nitazines, which is now being used. It's more deadly than fentanyl. And fentanyl is what is used to sedate the elephant. But our youths are using it already. And this one, we don't know where it's coming from. We're still investigating the source of fentanyl, still investigating the source of nitazenes. But these are drugs being experimented currently by our youth in the country. So we are working hard to close our borders to drug importations and exportation of those one produced in the country, and destroying the manufacturing as well as the production of drugs in the country. And that is why that is what you see in our effective action against drug use, against drug production. Then the preventive aspect, again, we have launched what we call War Against Drug Abuse. The War Against Drug Abuse is a community-based program where we intend to carry everybody along, because prevention is not just for the family. I mean, it's not just for the NDLA alone. Our government is for everybody, including the family sector. And what we launched recently, which is Safe Our Families, and other preventive actions put in place to ensure that we have families with drug testing kits at home. And what that means, if you suspect any member of the family that is using drug, you can actually conduct a simple test. And the essence is to see who is using drugs, to enable that person come out of it. You win that person immediately before it gets to dependency stage, where the person will become a menace to the family, to the public, and then to himself. So that is the essence of Safe Our Families launch, which we did recently during the World Drug Day.
I had wanted you to include, because every weekend, I know, you know, it's a pattern for the NDLEA to publish, you know, results of your raids, the people you apprehend and all that. But in spite of this, people keep going harder and harder into it. And so it doesn't look like you're going to stop ever. So why do people keep going in spite of the fact that they will be caught?
Well, that is a risk, which of course includes, why would people go to commit murder when they know if they're caught, they'll be killed?
Do some escape?
Yes. Well, you see, the problem in the country, I mean, the use of drug in the country is huge. In fact, it's something, what we are doing currently from our mapping, it shows that what we have, given the resources, we know what we have done so far is 1/10 of what we have in plan to do. We have a plan to do, 1/10. So if we have the resources required, in the coming weeks, months, and years, you would have seen that some of these things will be mopped off. Of course, you know that there's a step-up arrest and step-up seizures of drugs, mopping and destruction of drug farms. But of course, I tell you that this is the resources we have currently. And we know if we have more resources than what we have, we'd certainly go beyond this. We also know that this action is also yielding results already. We have reports recently from our partners abroad and from some countries abroad tell us that the number of Nigerians caught recently at the airports abroad has reduced considerably in the last 3 years. And some of them in prison for drug-related offenses have also reduced considerably. We have not done any research, but then these are reports coming from our partners and from some countries where we know they are source countries as well as destination countries for drugs. And this tells us that, yes, what we are doing is actually yielding results. But we intend to conduct a survey, a research to know how far the effort thus far has yielded the positive result towards combating drugs. We're not relying on what we hear because it's also not empirical, but when it comes from countries where we have so many Nigerians in jail that it has reduced considerably, we tend to believe them. And that gives us the encouragement to continue to do what we are doing.
All right, thank you, Mr. Haruna. Of course, we'll get back to you. Thank you for your opening thoughts there. Let's get to Dr. Joy Asakame. You are a senior registrar of behavioral medicine at the National Hospital. I want you to speak to us about what the push factors are, really. A lot of people are concerned, like Victor mentioned, despite the efforts of the NDLEA, there's still, people are, you know, interested in going into the business of drugs, and then people are also getting excited about going into drugs, I mean using drugs on a daily basis. What are the factors responsible for that? And then speak about the driving force for the younger people. Decades back, we hear about much older people using drugs, but now we have younger people and even women. What are the likely factors responsible for this?
Thank you very much. So there are a lot of push factors. We could look at it using the biopsychosocial model. Psychologically, the media influences our youth today. We look at our celebrities, they show these substances in their music videos, and the youth, they love it. They want to copy these celebrities. There's this push for being rich quickly. So the youth look at that, they want to be rich, they get into drug trafficking. Youths are impressionable. So the older ones are able to influence them very easily. Some young ones are used to push cocaine to other countries and other psychoactive substances. Now, if you look at some biological factors, family history, some youths grew up in families where the use of psychoactive substance is a norm. Some youths grew up in families where alcohol was even produced, like the locally brewed brukutu. So to them is a norm. They don't see anything wrong with it. Some, until they develop psychosis, they really do not know that they are addicted to substances. They do not see any wrong in the habits. So there are a lot of push factors. I think that the political class, sorry to say, also backs up the habits. I wouldn't go into that so that I don't step on any toes.
No, but we'd like to hear it.
We would like to hear. That's why we're here.
Exactly. Yes. We want to hear it, just so we can work on it.
What's the link with politics?
Well, there is a lot of fund in drug trafficking, a lot of profits. So it drives political desires, political aspirations. So people go into that.
To raise the funds
for their political aspirations. So,
but for women, what would be the excitement?
For women, the euphoria, some people are emotionally troubled and then they go into substance use just to solve this psychological distress. Some have sleep problems, some from marital issues. So they go into substance use just to calm their emotions, some just for the euphoria. And then for other men, it could just be as a result of novelty seeking, pleasure seeking.
Great. Let's get to Dr. Hope Omaiza now. Thank you very much, Dr. Asakame, for that. I think it opens our eyes to some certain things that are happening in the drug world that are not on the surface, happening beneath. Let's hear from Dr. Omaiza now. You are the director of VAGDA Specialist Rehabilitation. VGADA Specialist Rehabilitation Center. Speak to us. You have one-on-one contact with people who are undergoing rehabilitation as a result of drug use. What are your experiences? What do they tell you, about their involvement with drugs?
Yeah, thank you very much. And then you see, actually, most times we tend to confuse risk factors for causes. Yeah, it is true that people may go into drugs because they don't have money, but we also need to know that there are people who go into drugs because they have the money. It's also true that people go into drugs because of, maybe women go into drugs because of heartbreaks or what they call breakfast being served. But then you also need to know that people also take drugs because they got into a new relationship. All right, so it's like someone got into an accident and then you ask, what is the risk factor for this accident? Yes, the accident happened. Maybe he was not looking at his view. He was probably pressing his phone. Or he had a faulty car. Now, but if you now talk about, the weather. So what actually caused the accident? If the weather was bad, yes, but if he was focusing, he probably wouldn't get into the accident. So we need to look away from symptoms and look at the causative causes of drug abuse, and which includes the fact that people have low or are low in social skills that help them to cope with life stresses. There are many people who lived or grew up in homes where families, even parents, take alcohol, but they never did. There are people who lived with roommates in schools that they were all taking marijuana, but they never did. So what is it about them? Some of these persons are also low in self-esteem. A young man had told me how, in fact, he told the psychologist and said, "My friends betrayed me." How did they betray you? He was told by his friends that if he takes a particular substance, his confidence will be okay, he will have his head free. So that person actually have a problem with handling stress that life portends. He had failed his work and parents were insulting him, or he didn't do very well. And so he came down under that, under the weight of the criticisms. So if somebody tell me now that, Dr. Hope, you are stupid, the same, I may walk away, I won't say anything. The same you are stupid, they will tell a friend or someone else, and he will say, how will he say this to me? So we need to know that drug abuse is just one behavior among maladaptive behaviors that are problems to people. Recently on Arise News, I was talking about gambling addiction. My organization have seen I've reached out to several youths who are hooked on gambling, despite losing so much of their resources and their investments. So people are always, like my colleague here said, pleasure seeking. But there are people who, instead of taking drugs to seek pleasure, they will rather choose make other choices to seek pleasure. You can get pleasure from swimming, from getting new grades, from getting a new job, from doing well at your work of place, get commended by your bosses. Now, so people, as early as possible, we must begin to direct intervention towards childhood psychology. Psychology in children is important. It's one place that needs to be broached so that intervention at those age groups can be implemented, so that young people grow who have confidence, who have self-esteem, who are assertive, who are able to say, I'm not going to do this and I won't do this, who know that, okay, this is wrong, this is bad, which is also where the psychoeducation part comes in educating them about drugs of abuse and the rest. So it's important that we must begin to look beyond, even when we go to the family setting, we have family therapy sessions for our patients too. You will need to look for dynamics that could lead to these issues. There are parents who have told their child themselves that you can take it, it's not anything. In fact, I've had a discordant family where the father do not see anything wrong with the child's alcohol use disorder. He just felt alcohol is, didn't I take alcohol? I will not all taking alcohol. Why is it on a different case? So you just know that this person will relapse immediately after he leaves because the mother is concerned, but the father is rationalizing the boy's behavior. So you see, when my boss here, the secretary, has mentioned that there is an approach now that is geared towards family, I'm excited because organizations like us and other government organizations must shift focus from just doing road rallies, for example, or just holding press conferences, but we must step down to the grassroots. And I'm happy the NDLA is already toeing that direction. They've been doing that. Most times when we interview NDLA, we just ask them about seizures, but they don't tell us how much they do at drug demand reduction. Your question about, why are people, your question, Mr. Victor, why are people still going into the market of, drug trafficking and the rest, despite the seizures? It's very simple. The truth is, there is no businessman that will go into a particular trade if there is no demand for that trade. You won't start selling jewelries if people don't buy jewelries. So while we are seizing, we need to also intensify efforts on drug demand reduction so that people don't even ask for drug. And so if that happens, people won't go into it. If they are going into it because it's lucrative, in as much as the NDLA sees the more, people will do more to get their substance to those who are demanding for it. They will take all the risk. They might even increase the prices for the drugs, which unfortunately, in the case of those who are addicted, they will find wherever money is to buy the drug. So if they were selling at 10,000 naira, for example, and the NDLA, raid and seize their large quantity, they have smaller quantity left, they are going to sell that at maybe 100,000 naira because they know that there is a ready market for it. The unfortunately, group of demanders, those who are demanding for these goods. And these are people that they should also be treated. Because if somebody is hooked on substance, despite the negative consequences, in the face of the negative consequences, he or she is going to continue use of that substance if he doesn't get help. And again, thankfully, the NDLA with other organizations have, rehab centers, and they are building more. And we have also partnered, they have referred patients to us even, and we are working together on all of these things. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Omeza. Let's quickly get to Benin City, where we have Dr. Okechukwu, Okonkwo rather, Chukwuemeka, at the neuropsychiatric hospital in Benin City. I don't know what your patients tell you, but how much have you been able to get? Because I know as part of your treatment, you would also want to know how the individual, what drives the individual into whatever vices that has brought them to your hospital. And so what have you found in your experience?
Sir, sorry, if you don't mind, if you could kindly repeat your question again, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to know what you have found in your experience in the hospital that you operate, the people you deal with. What do they tell you is the driving force behind their addiction, their behavior that brings them to you?
Okay. If I get your question correct, you asked my experiences where I work, the individuals that present with this problem of drug abuse, what are their drives, what causes them. Sorry, I don't know if that was what you asked, sir.
Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much once again. Just like the secretary to the agency, NDLA, and my colleagues had succinctly explained there, the issues surrounding drug abuse and the push is actually multifactorial, right? And I would want to look at an angle that hadn't been pointed out so far, which is the fact that currently we have a high surge of young people who participate in internet fraud, right? An important thing about this particular category of individual is that there is a need for them to perform most of their activities at the night, right? So the implication of this is that, the normal cycle, that the normal biological clock that requires an individual to be able to go to bed at a certain time, right? So, but in this case, for them to be able to continue to perform the activities that they engage in, they would need to make use of some certain substances, and in this case, unfortunately, has to do with the psychoactive substances. So here we look at a class of medication, including the cannabinoids, the methamphetamines, the opioids, the cocaines, the heroin, the codeines, etc. Right? So what this does is that they could start by, okay, I need to use this to improve my work output, right? But unfortunately, from using it to improve their work output, they begin to develop tolerance, right? They begin to develop dependence, and eventually it becomes a substance use disorder for them that in the layman's term, we could begin to see that it has mastered the ability to be in control of use of that drug when they want to use. So it becomes a problem. right? Then another important factor that also contributes is the fact that across the age group that had been cited, the fact that about 14.3 million Nigerians between the ages of 15 to 64 years old uses psychoactive substance or uses drug, right? Is the fact that we also have a desire among this age group to improve on their sexual ability or sexual skills, or if you wish. So the individual desires to last for, say, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, you know. And just like my colleague rightly pointed out, the media, right? So you see scenarios, movies, where, you know, there is a picture of what should be the sexual power, in quotes, of a male or a female, right? The duration you are supposed to last, you know, and it gives a certain negative perception. So you find individuals desiring to meet up with such expectations that the society unknowingly had placed on them. So what happens? They go into a use of these substances. Some substances actually had been identified to improve sexual ability. So what happens? From using it, you know, once in a while to improve their sexual ability, they begin to develop the same tolerance, the same dependence, and it becomes a problem. Then eventually they could end up coming down with a number of factors. Another aspect we may need to highlight here, which would also be very important, is what we call the economic and the compulsive model, you know, that relates drug use and crime. However, we are not going to, our focus won't be the aspect of the crime, right? So you see that an individual begins to use psychoactive substance for whatsoever reason that they started use, just like the other guest speakers had highlighted. So what happens? Eventually, they develop the tolerance, they develop the dependence, and they drug masters them, the architecture of the brain areas that are able to enable an individual to inhibit some behaviors and control what they desire to do and want to do are distorted, are broken down. So that begins to make the individual to desire to acquire the same drug. That's compulsive behavior. So you find out that apparently they are no longer in charge of when they want to use the drug or not. So that contributes to the factors that makes them to present. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chukwuemeka, for that. You have opened, you know, another window to all of this and why drug abuse thrives. I'd like to get back in the studio now, and I'd like Shedrack Haruna to respond to my question. You talked about the efforts of NDLEA, and yes, we get to see reports every week, reading this, reading that, but not stopping. Dr. Maiza said, well, it doesn't stop because the demand is high. But is it possible that those who are actually the barons, I think that's the word, like the leaders, those who control the cartel. Okay, now the cartel, those who control the spread, the importation, or if you like, the movement of these drugs, you don't really capture those people, you know, the leaders, those the kingpins, you know, in this drug business. You just go after the little fries, and so, of course, you cannot stop it because, I mean, when the leader is still there and all of that. Is there a challenge for the NDLEA? Because Dr. Joy Asakame said, well, political elites too are also involved in this business. Do you have a challenge in dealing with those who are actually the leaders in this drug business?
Well, I think if you have been following your news recently, you would have seen that NDLEA has captured and harvested so many barons. In fact, the current move is not even to harvest flowers. We're going after the roots. And what that means is we go after the barons. And in the past 3 years, we have so many barons that have been arrested and have been prosecuted. In fact, we have some of them convicted already. If you look at the news background which your colleagues gave a while ago, it shows how many barons that have been arrested in the past 3 years, and some of them are undergoing criminal prosecution. We've had some of their properties and assets forfeited to the government. We have some of them convicted already, and some are still undergoing
But in the course of doing that, do you have challenges as an agency?
Of course, with anything you have challenges, but we were able to surmount some of those challenges.
Which include?
Of course, it includes the manpower and the training and the capacity. But recently, you would have seen that we have increased the number of staff, and anywhere you now see that your neighbor, NDLA officer, is just like any other person. You will not know who is an NDLA officer. In all our places, I wouldn't tell you some of our strategies, but of course, we know that we have deployed so many. And from those who are users, down to the middle peddlers, to the barons, we're tracing them, and we're getting them. We've destroyed so many of those, how do you call it, clandestine laboratories owned by barons. We've destroyed so many warehouses in the forest where they have stacked so much of this cannabis. We're going after the warehouses, the bonded warehouses as well, where we have recovered so much of these drugs, and the barons have been arrested. So it's in the past that you don't see any effort to get the barons, but right currently, the whole effort of our offensive action is against the baron.
Now, earlier, I asked you, whether you were able to get, like Yere was asking just a moment ago, do you have a political challenge? That's actually what she's asking. Okay. Do you have a political challenge?
No, rather we have a political will to work. And that is why we are achieving success currently. The political will, yes, probably the resources. And government we have a lot of competing demands for the resources we have. But of course, to our own end, we're getting those resources. And the more we get these resources, the more we prioritize we upscale our efforts. Before 2021, there was virtually no vehicles, operational vehicles. But now we have operational vehicles. And you see how our officers are going to the deep forest. Not just operational vehicles, including armored vehicles, to such unmanned areas where our officers are being challenged by gun barons and their foot soldiers. So we have armored vehicles, we have scanners at the airport now, we're buying more. Recently, government approved some for us to buy, and also approved weapons for us to defend our officers, for our officers to defend themselves in the course of operations. So all these are government actions and government political will to ensure that we upscale our offensive action.
I asked you earlier, do some escape? Because the reason I asked at a point why people still go ahead, and I'm talking about particularly those you catch, you apprehend at the airports.
You mean escape like what? Escape from the net?
I'm coming.
Yes.
Those you get at the airports.
Yes.
Every week.
Yes.
Why do they keep doing it if they know for sure that they are going to be caught?
Well, it's not.
Why do they keep going to the airports?
It's not the same people caught that go back to do it. Different, of course, there's so many of them.
But we get to hear more stories.
We hear about some of the push factors, which includes quick wealth. People take, how do I call it? They take a risk to do anything.
But if you are not going to get to the end of it, why do you do it?
Exactly. We hear more stories of the apprehension, not about the convictions.
Oh, no. You heard about the convictions. Just between January and May alone, we had about 9,000 convictions. That tells you the effort. And when you said escape, no, if you are caught, you can't escape.
No, I mean not if you are caught.
Yes.
If it boils down to the same question I've been asking, if, for instance, I know that if I go to the airport, you are going to apprehend me, why do I want to try at all?
Yeah.
People try because they think that there's a chance somewhere that they could go. Maybe Mr. A, was able to pull through. Of course, they have a network. Yep. Mr. C was caught, but Mr. D did it and got away with it. Yeah. Is there a chance that people still manage to escape the airport, for instance?
Of course, you can't say you achieve 100% in everything. But with the acquisition of scanners and intensive investigation now, I think it's going to be difficult. Hitherto, yes, we had scanners at all the airport, but now we have scanners at the major airport. And that's why you see seizures all the time. People they take the risk to come with it because of the money involved. Little drugs, of course, if you know that one cup of cocaine like this will give you millions of dollars, why not? Take that risk. because now we're mopping it off the street, so the price is going higher for the little quantity. Of course, the law of demand and supply applies, just like our colleague Meza just said. If you mop off drugs from the street, the little ones on the street will have a very commanding price. And people take that risk to do that. They come in, and we get them all the time. So when you see so many of them being arrested at the airport, it's because of that surveillance which is now being mounted, because we have scanners and we're acquiring scanners for more airports. So that is the offensive action.
You talked about convictions and you said, well, over 9,000. Like I said, there's more news about the apprehension, all the time compared to the news of those who get convicted for being involved in drug trafficking or drug use, whichever one. Would you say the penalty is stiff enough, for those who get apprehended, who go to court, who get convicted and all of that? Would you say the penalty is stiff enough? Because maybe that's why Victor keeps asking, why do people, continue to go into it? A situation where somebody commits a crime, maybe you're caught with drugs worth billions of naira, and then you get to court, you get convicted, and then maybe you are asked to stay for like 1-2 years, and then you get out. I mean, why would somebody else not want to try?
Does the law need to get stiffer?
Yeah, you said we don't hear more about convictions. Of course, we don't report so many of our activities. In fact, the seizures and arrests you see is just a little of what we have in a week, of what we have in a week. It's not everything that's been reported. If we report everything, the country will be alarmed. But when it comes to convictions, of course, it's a court process. And the court process takes a while. But between January and now, we have over 9,000 convictions, which tells you the process the court is even taking. The court is very fast in conviction these days. But over and above that, the punishment to me is stiff enough. Not just convictions and incarceration, but now if you are caught, it's taken as a lifestyle crime, meaning that whatever you have, we have a new law which is called Process of Crime Act. If you are caught with any drug, even if you have 5 years, all your assets will have the basic presumption that you got it from the process of crime. And those assets will be liable to forfeiture to the government. Your properties will be liable to forfeiture. So that is stiff enough, and that is to disrupt the criminal enterprise involved in drug trafficking. So it's not just conviction, 15 years, 25 years, you have all your assets forfeited. I think that is strong enough for anyone.
All right. Since we're talking prevention, Dr. Joy, what are the health implications? Perhaps if we're talking about how damaging, drug use can be, maybe we'll be getting somewhere. What are the health implications from the minimal to the worst of it?
Thank you. The health implications of substance use are extensive. They are grave. First, you look at the physical aspect of it. These substances, they affect the vital organs of the body. The kidneys, the liver. Excessive alcohol consumption results in issues like liver cirrhosis, liver cancers. Smoking, cannabis, cigarettes results in lung cancers. You have cognitive decline, people losing their ability to think, focus, people losing their memory because of substance use. Psychologically, you have mental illness developing from something as easy as sleep problems to psychosis. The use of cannabis has been linked in several researches to development of schizophrenia. Some studies show up to 44 to 50% conversion from cannabis use to schizophrenia. And schizophrenia is purely a psychotic illness. So the other psychological implications of substance use would include depression, anxiety, Then going to the social implications, people get to lose their jobs. So I would give certain instances to make it more, graphic. So I'll use patients while keeping confidentiality. So I've seen patients, for example, a doctor, a surgeon, who abused pentazocine. He self-injected up to the point of, ruining his wrist joints. And as a surgeon, that's his source of livelihood. He uses his hands. Now, the ulcers from injections have eaten deep into the wrist, and there's just a thin strip left in that wrist. That surgeon is meant to undergo an amputation. And he's having a difficult time making a decision, because if he loses that hand, what does he use for his surgeries? How does he move on with life? What does he depend on next? You know, that same person is having issues with his family, wife, children, you know. Unemployment for some other people because they are not able to focus, their cognitive ability has declined so much. For example, bankers make so much mistakes with data, and of course when you're making mistakes with figures at the bank, you're losing money. You know, absenteeism from work. I heard of a story of a bank manager who started abusing cocaine, and then she lost all her money, lost her job. She was still in the habits. So in a bid to get more money to purchase cocaine, she started practicing oral sex on men just to get money. You know, imagine someone in the cadre of a bank manager going down to the streets under the bridge to perform oral sex just to get money. I heard of someone who, because of substance use, sold his story building for 5,000 naira just to buy, you know, the substances. So many cases, you know. So socially, you know, people lose their families, people lose their jobs, people lose employment, people lose their career. They are unable to continue with school because mentation is poor. They are not able to comprehend what they are doing in school, and so, you know, they have to leave. So the effects are far-reaching.
Well, it's not a good situation from what you have painted for us, Dr. Sakame. Well, let's get to Dr. Maiza now. You know, despite the implication of using drugs, some people, in a bid to recruit more drug users, would say it depends on how strong you are or how tough you are. Is it true that some people are just too tough for drugs to deal with, and some others? Would you say that there's a difference in our build-up as individuals, and why some people go on for life and nothing happens to them, and some others come down with the first use?
Yeah, of course, we are not all the same. Even when you have a twin, characteristics are not the same because of different biological and genetic makeups. Just the same way you have an individual takes chloroquine, it doesn't itch him or her, but then someone else take probably very little dose of that and he goes everywhere itching. Now, it's the same thing. Research has it that just 10 to 15% of those who use drugs have a problem with the drug. I mean, develop problematic drug use disorders. That being said, it means that if you have 100 people using drugs, you just have 15 or 10 of them that won't be able to stop the use, or that it will eat into their life. Families become dysfunctional, relationships, social, work, balance, and the rest. However, if we have, in Nigeria, for example, we have youths about 70% composing our population. That comes to around 150 million youths. Let's say these individuals are using drugs, for example, and then you have 15% of that number. I'm sure you know what that connotes. If you, in a family, have just one person, a family of, say, 20, with extended family, immediate families, and then you have, say, one person having addiction, it brings everybody down, because the family needs to deal with stigma, family needs to deal with depression and anxiety. We've had to manage a mother who developed panic disorders because she was always called severally by, you know, mobs sometimes, or from the police, asking her, are you the mother of this person? Your child is in our custody. Come before we kill your son, you know, coming from the mobs at times. So whenever an unknown number calls her, she just goes everywhere. Her BP is shooting up, she's sweating, she's shaking everywhere. So you can just imagine. Now, you look at the siblings of these people too, they are also being stigmatized. Parents have developed hypertension and even stroke. A mother had even told me, doctor, I'm just going to kill this boy. I mean, you won't blame her because she has gone through a lot. All she has worked for, this young man has squandered all on drugs. So you can just imagine the burden it brings on all the family members when you have one person, just one. And some families have 2, 3, and even more. So it's not because we say 10 to 15%, oh, it's a small number. We can't deal with even 1%. Because again, addiction, what we have not mentioned is that it's a relapsing disease. Just like your hypertension, just like your diabetes, it's a relapsing disease. The tendencies for people to relapse, even after treatment, is quite high. So how much more can families afford to shell off for treatment of individuals who have these problems? So how many psychiatrists, experts do you even have in Nigeria? How many rehab centers do you have to manage them? So again, you wouldn't say that because 85% or 90% of people will not have problem, let me also try. Because you don't know which of the divide you will fall into. A young man had just tasted marijuana once and he went off. He presented psychotic symptoms and he had to be treated for over 3 months in the facility. So these things vary. So you are not going to say, because I have an uncle who takes marijuana all his life, he's even more responsible than my father. You know, so many of us have such uncles or such relations that we can make reference to. And so which is why in psychoeducating children, we need to tell them the truth. The whole scare tactics of, oh, if you take marijuana, you fall into the gutter. If you take alcohol, you die. These children know parents or uncles who are using these substances and are not dysfunctional. And they're not falling. So they just feel you are lying to them and they don't trust you. So, but they must know that this is the truth. But then you don't know which of the divide you will be. And if you get, unfortunately, into that divide, it's a problem for you, for your immediate family, for the society. Because we are losing a talent, you know, to drug. If we lose a young man or a child to drug use behavior.
Is it true that the use of drugs inspires, you know, certain people? Because, you know, Dr. Sakame was talking about the media and celebrities using drugs, and we see them advertise it, we see them say it in their words, you know, and we've heard people say, well, if you are into a certain field, maybe music and all of that, if you are not on all those substances, no inspiration. Is that true?
Okay, that is what we call drug messaging. There's something we call drug messaging in treatment, where people, I mean, the drug make them believe that this is why I am doing this. I remember in Nuga Games in 2022, I was speaking to athletes in Ilag, and I told them, they also feel that if they take substances, they're able to perform more, you know, play more. Now, the truth is, yes, you perform more, but your basic, stable, physiological capacity declines after you use that substance. And without use of that substance, a player that can play for 40 minutes, maybe just half time and leave the stage, can now play for 90 minutes, right? But without the substance, he will not be able to play for that 40 minutes again. An individual who was able to write, maybe write songs, or 2 tracks or whatever, after he starts taking substance to maybe do more, if he stops or if he doesn't take that substance a day or 2, he won't even be able to function. That tells you that we need to learn new skills for inspiration, new skills for performance, new skills for capacity. Not choosing drug is not an alternative, because it further declines your capacity without or pre-use. So it's important that we must begin to, you know, create awareness around alternatives for young people, because everybody wants to increase their pleasure level or create pleasure and numb pain. So people need to learn new ways or alternative ways for numbing pain, creating pleasure, and increasing pleasure. So if we have this, somebody who needs inspiration, we know that he should eat well first, he should sleep well, you know. So, and then perhaps visit the gym, swim. There are activities you can do that will boost your serotonin, dopamine levels, you know, and you'll be at that euphoric level, state of mind that you feel you need to function. All right. So if some parents have taken substances just because they have a speaking engagement, but then what happens to you managing your time, knowing about the event, knowing about your audience, learning about your audience, you know, practicing before the mirror, and all of those things. So there are other alternatives that can be used, which is what we are saying. All right. So I think that's these are the things that are.
All right, Dr. Omeza, thank you very much for your contribution. We'll pause here for a break to pay some bills. When we return, I'll bring Dr. Okonkwo back into the conversation. Please stay with us.
The federal government of Nigeria warns vandals of national assets, electricity transmission towers, cables and other facilities to desist from this act of sabotage. Vandalism is a serious crime punishable under the law. Vandalizing electrical equipments will affect millions of Nigerians, including your loved ones. Remember that national assets belong to all of us, hence the need to protect them. Report all cases of suspicious movement around electrical facilities to security agencies. When you see something, say something. This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation in collaboration with the National Counter-Terrorism Center, NCTC, Office of the National Security Advisor.
Meet lovebirds Jayola and Adama Davies. Their dream of living together as man and wife has finally been fulfilled.
The latest couple in town, Mr. and Mrs. Giant Davis!
But an invasion by their troublesome families was not a scenario they bargained for. Her mother moves in. His mother shows up with his little niece. Then her younger sister joins the scramble.
You want to stay?
Married life suddenly becomes very complicated even before it started. Follow their story on this channel as they confront every challenge as it comes. Family forever, the story of our lives.
Welcome. It's Weekend Deal.
This na Go TV, and now for here you fit watch better football from Mbappe. Ball wey Kane use the tear net, Ronaldo. And all the big boys we go follow drag the who go be Oga of Europe. Now who go become the Baba of Europe? Watch all the 51 games live on Top Super Sport from GoTV Jolly to Super Plus and GoTV Stream. Euro 2024 live. It goes sweet on Top GoTV. Love it.
All right, thank you very much for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria. We've been discussing preventing drug abuse in Nigeria. Let me get back to Dr. Chukwuemeka Okonkwo in Benin. Doc, I just wanted to share again from your experience. Would you say that there is a risk, to national security, for instance, from what you know, interacting with your patients?
For that question, sir, I'd like to bring in a concept here that was developed by a man named Goldstein. So it's about a concept that tries to conceptualize the relationship between drugs and crime, right? So you look at it from a number of levels, where you have the psychopharmacological model of the relationship between drug and crime, right? So in this concept, he basically talks about the fact that use of substance begins to lead to a distortion in the individual physiological, biological, and anatomical makeup, right? So here we are looking at the centers of the brain that are in charge in ensuring an adequate inhibition of behavior and character, right? So use of drug distorts this. So once this happens, what begins to happen is that the individual begins to develop what we call withdrawal, tolerance, and dependence, as we had highlighted before. So these experiences can be excruciating, they can be distressing, and the only way out, usually, that seems as if is the solution for the person is to find the substance, right? So what do? They go at any length to get the substance, and this involves, engaging in different crimes such as theft, armed robbery, right, destruction of property, and a number of things, right? So, and you would agree with me that such crimes could involve a risk of harm to others and the community and the society at large, right? So that in itself is a risk to the internal security of the community where the individual resides. So when you go a step higher, when you look at the economic and the compulsive model, right? This basically also relates to the individual that uses this substance, right? And because there is a demand, just like one of my colleagues had pointed out, which is the economic link in this model, right? So the drug industry market, there is a component here. You are looking at the manufacturers, to the traffickers, to the distributors, to the dealers, and to the end users, right? So they understand this is business. So they have to be able to supply this. And in supplying this, and you'd agree with me that they would have to break some certain protocols that ensures the internal security of a place or a locality. And this can increase the risk of violence in an area and as well as risk of crime. And this already breaches the internal security of that particular domicility or location. Then when you go a bit further, you look at what we call the systemic model, right? That tries to look at the fact that the drug use is a market that has different players, different actors, and we had mentioned some of them, right? So in their struggle to maintain their territory, what in the street they could call territory, in their struggle to maintain their territory, they also engage in some other activities such as weaponry, right, where they have to acquire weaponry to be able to showcase a measure of power to their opponent or to their rival cartel group, right? So in so doing, you begin to see a scenario whereby people begin to engage in, gun firing within a locality, distorting the internal security of that area, leading to loss of lives, loss of property, and that also distorts the internal security of the place. And importantly, before I leave it at this point, we also have to look at it from the angle that the drug use also, has a relationship to cultism and gangsterism, right? So if that be the case, that when individual engages in cultism, gangsterism, most times the activities, the ritual would require a measure of elation, a measure of, sense of feeling of being in charge, of being powerful. And what gives you that sense of feeling of being powerful? Drug. So that relationship, right, enables them to be able to, you could see an individual without compassion, without empathy, shooting a fellow individual for whatever reason. So that in itself is crime, and that distorts the internal security. So it's a complex relationship that begs for immediate proactive solution. Thank you.
Emeka, thank you so much. I like the way you express, the link, all of that. Very, very beautiful, and of course easy for anyone to understand. Let's get to Dr. I was just about to say Dr. Haruna. Of course, I'm sure maybe that's in the pipeline. But Haruna, we're talking about drug, the cartels and all of that. Do you have any international collaborations? Does the agency, NDLEA, working with other bodies outside of the country? Because we hear sometimes that sometimes Nigeria is not the destination for these drugs. It's a route, you know, Nigeria, you know, they from here to other countries, transit and all of that. So are you in touch with other agencies and other countries, you know, around, or from countries where some of these drugs are coming from, just so that you can be able to track it and then reduce the whole situation?
Yep. Well, thank you. Before I answer your question, let me just correct the statistic I gave earlier. I did mention that between January and May this year, we have 9,000 convictions. Apparently, it's from 2021 to May this year that we have 9,000 convictions. Between January and May this year, we have 1,366 convictions, and more are coming in. Well, just again to go back to Dr. Chukwuemeka for the link and the nexus between drug and crime, what he has not mentioned is the fact that the bandits, Boko Haram, and all the insurgents, as well as the belligerent groups, they use drug to foster their terror. Indeed, the cost of drug now is actually heightened because of the use by this group we have mentioned. Because we're mopping off the street, but this group are constantly demanding for drugs. This clearly came to us from those military officers who are working there. Anytime they push them away, they see a huge cache of drugs. And that's why we now have armored vehicles that can actually penetrate some of the areas that we have information they store their drugs. So going back to your questions on the external or international collaborators, indeed, yes, we do. Drug is a transnational crime, and you can't fight transnational crime without bilateral cooperation with other countries or without cooperation with police of other nations. We have a lot of MOU within the African sub-region as well as beyond. In Asian countries where we know some of these drugs emanate from, we have MOU with them. We have constant touch. We do have contact persons between the two agencies of those countries as well. We get constant information from our partners abroad, and part of the information we get is what we are seeing, resulting to some of the seizures we have. We cannot do without it. It's a transnational crime. And the essence is to foster this collaboration. And we have a web of collaboration through the multilateral settings to bilateral setting. The multilateral setting is also through the UN agencies, as well as through law enforcement of other countries like DEA, NCA, which is National Crime Agency of the UK, the British Border Force, the Indian anti-narcotic drugs, the Pakistanis, and all of them. We have this network and we're working with them. On a daily basis, we have contact persons communicating with them. So it is something that we must put in place, which we have currently. We have a dedicated office for that, and we have information sharing, which we call police-to-police information, informal form of sharing. And when we want to take actions, we take action based on intelligence shares. So there's so many actions we have to do, so many things we have to do to ensure that we stop drug coming in and we stop drug from going out.
Based on the seizures that you've had and then the history, what country would you say most of the drugs that you have seized are coming from?
Well, if I have to pontificate without necessarily trying to say that the country is guilty, we have tramadol coming from Asian countries like India, but we do have a very good collaboration with India currently, where they too are stopping tramadol being produced in high dosage in India, and we're working with them. South Africa is another one, and those ones in South Africa are Nigerians working with the collaborators in the country. And then, of course, we have UAE, where we have drugs being exported to, and so many other countries in Europe. And, of course, we're collaborating with all these countries. So there's just no area that is left unmanned currently.
Okay.
But we do know that, yes, it's happening, and then we have also set our own officers in place to see that they monitor the communications, and we're also helping some of our countries within the sub-region to also monitor the drugs coming into their country, because they use countries, our neighbors, which are very close to us, bring in drugs there and they try to ship in through the creeks. We know that, and our marine unit is also working hard to dismantle such cartel, bringing drugs from our neighboring countries through the creeks.
Now, in trying to mitigate, drug abuse, is there a role for the churches, the mosques, religious leaders, communities, community leaders, society, family, parents? What's the role for all of them? Because apparently, security operations may not do the job alone. There may need to be some form of soft efforts that you have to make. What's the role in it for all of these people?
Thank you very much. I think our WADA program is actually structured to capture all these groups you mentioned. The churches, the faith-based organizations, the families, the traditional rulers, we work in the schools as well. We know that they have a very huge role. And families, just like Dr. Meza mentioned, a family unit is the basis of all this thing we're talking about. You have your kids, you need to allow them to learn social skills. Not just going to school. They should go to other things, because that is where they need to build their self-esteem. Because low esteem is part of the issues of peer pressure. So if families should realize that from the beginning, at the age 4, 5, you should introduce your children to other extracurriculum activities that will keep them busy, like games, not just computer games. They're going out to play volleyball, badminton, and all those things. Of course, which used to be in those days. But now that we have so many schools that are day schools, you don't see such activities happening anymore. But you need to encourage your children to go out for extracurriculum activities to build a self-esteem. And then, of course, families too, which we've just launched, the Safer Family Unit, is also a way to prevent such things happening in the family. If you notice, a member of the family is using drugs, just conduct a test and try to see how you can seek the help of people like Dr. Meza and our doctor here to help them out of the use. Of course, we have rehabilitation centers that will also intervene at that early stage to counsel and rehabilitate them.
What's the role for journalists without necessarily endangering themselves?
Journalists is also to help to propagate the message of, stop drug use. Of course, journalists has a huge role. In fact, without journalists, you wouldn't know how many people we have really counseled. Without journalists, you would not know the impact of drugs at all. Because some people are there in the villages that they hardly know what is happening in cities. And some are just taking it because of peer pressure, not knowing the impact it will have on their health. But journalists showing what is happening certainly will help the people.
Thank you very much, Shadrach Haruna, Secretary to the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency. We're beginning to round off the conversation because of time, but I'd like Dr. Meza to speak to someone who is battling addiction at this point. There are people who want to get out, but don't just know how to. So speak to us about the process and how they can get support to be able to get out of drug addiction.
Thank you very much. Anyone suffering addiction, even though we have slim resources available, but there is still ample support. We will have to utilize the resources available, first of all, in the family setup. Because the response, what we call expressed emotion, which is a spontaneous response of relations of those who use drugs towards an individual that uses drug. So that expressed emotion sometimes can be high in families, where everything the person now commits is directed at, oh, you have used a substance. Now sometimes families actually find out by themselves that they are what's used, but however, there are children who volunteered such information to their parents and is now used against them. And that will not help the person who is suffering addiction at the moment. Then you move on to maybe the society, which might include friends. Friends have to be more supportive, and non-judgmental. So I know that they are judgmental because they don't have knowledge that, see, it can actually be me. It's him does not mean it can't be me. And sometimes families feel that these persons are doing it at their own volition. They have control of their behavior. Why can't you just stop this behavior? You see, so that is one advocacy the NDLA has also led, to not just arrest. They arrest drug dealers, not users. The users, we have agreed that these users are sick. So we must, when we look at it from the perspective of a public health concern, then we would be able to support them more appropriately. Now, so that families don't judge them. Oh, you are making us look bad. Didn't you train you well? Drug addiction is not moral failure. The use itself, you have mentioned causes. There's nothing about it that maybe the person wasn't properly trained. So there are people who have been properly trained, but then because they lack in these psychological and social skills, resilient skills, they are not able to cope with stresses. So if we don't judge them as to, you are a bad boy. Somebody called yesterday and said, my brother is an addict. And I said, no, he's not an addict. He's your brother with other features you know about him which are good, but has a drug use problem or an addiction problem. So when you label the person, you're not helping the person. So we must shift our mind. That is getting help for the person. We must shift our mind from this person is doing this intentionally, it's his fault, he knows what he's doing. And then, of course, the journalist, as was rightly mentioned, the journalist must begin to, spread the message in the light of reforming the perception of rehabilitation programs. People feel that rehab care programs are punishment programs for wrongdoing. It's not so. A mother called me and said, I was telling her the rooms are air-conditioned. He said, why air-conditioned rooms? I'm spending money, somebody is doing this to me, you are putting in an air-conditioned room. That's the person. Okay, if you have malaria and you have to be admitted in the hospital, won't you prefer air-conditioned room? So if you look at drug addiction as a disease, then we will be able to give the support this person needs. You have malaria, you have treated it. After 3 months, you may have it again. Do anybody beat you for having malaria again? Do anybody punish you for having malaria again? Everybody just garner support and support you to get treatment. So if we begin to think in that way, then it becomes safe. Those who are addicted to drugs will have that safe mentality that, they will see the world as a safe space to express themselves, which is why, because the world is not safe to them, they are being stigmatized, they are being harassed, they are being punished for using drugs. So they eventually recoil to hideouts where they can use this without you noticing or without people knowing, and it portends more harm to them. There's this program now that the NDL is beginning to invite, and of course other health facilities on harm reduction, which is to say, if someone injects drugs, instead of them reusing the needle, why not get them new needles? That may shake some people up morally, but then this person reused needles and expose his or herself to risk of infections that can even kill the person before the drug use behavior. So why not ensure that this person is safe? In fact, sometimes rehab care program is to get the person safe. There are people whose brothers or families bring to the facility because drug dealers are after them. So they need to be safe. Many have lost their lives in the hands of drug dealers. In fact, somebody told me recently, that these drug dealers, sir, do not just sell with their ordinary eyes, that they actually fetish in what they sell to people, just to keep them coming. So again, it's multifactorial, even helping them. Spirituality comes into play. So parents must also, so it's a whole lot to discuss, which is one role Christians, Muslims, all religious practices, mosque and all need to.
You just made a point now about the fact that drug users are supposed to be treated like they have an ailment.
Yes.
Why does the police arrest drug users?
Well, I don't know of the police, but I have worked closely with the NDLA. And I'm telling you that NDLA men have called me in their various routes in Kano also, and said, Dr. Hope, we saw a woman now with her son, met some tramadol in the boy's bag. We are sending him to Abuja when they return to Abuja for sessions, for treatment, for therapy.
No, not that kind of drug use. Like you go to a place where you see boys smoking Indian hemp, cannabis. Is it cannabis or Indian hemp? I don't know. But whatever. And then sometimes you hear reports of the police getting there and raiding them and getting them arrested and all of that. Should that be the...
Yeah, we do conduct raids sometimes, but such people apparently being used to know the source of where they're getting these drugs from.
Oh, okay.
Like if you notice that they are users, we send them to rehab. We don't prosecute them. We don't put any punitive measures on those who are users. But of course, possession itself is technically an offense. But it depends on the quantity. If you have a huge quantity, of course, you go for prosecution. But if the quantity is so minimal and you're a user and you have seen that you're becoming dependent on it, an option is given to you, and that discretion comes from the chairman, chief executive, who will tell the commander, send that person to rehab because of the quantity. But if the quantity is of a level that you cannot tolerate it, you take such a person before the court. Because technically, whoever uses is also in possession, and possession is an offense. But of course, we can't just do that with our eyes closed, not knowing the quantity that is amount to be trading in it and the one meant to be used.
Yes. All right, Dr. Asekame, in a minute, we are almost out of time completely. What will be your parting shot on this program now?
Okay, so thank you very much. It's been a wonderful discussion. So I would like to say to the society at large, Nigeria, let's look at substance use using the disease model or the medical model, not the moral model, because these substance users are victims. So we need to support them, we need to stop the stigma, and there are a lot of outlets for help. The hospitals, the non-governmental organizations are out there to help. And I saw a list of organizations affiliated with the NDLEA, with their contact details, addresses, and NDLEA registration number, and I was really impressed that these organizations are out there, a lot of them, a good number of them. So people should seek help, rehabilitation. Though substance use is a chronic, remitting, and relapsing illness, cure is, certain.
All right, thank you so much. Final words, Haruna. I would like to apologize to Dr. Chukwuemeka because of time, but I'm sure we'll have another opportunity, some other time for you to express yourself more. But we're out of time. I would like the Secretary of the NDLEA to just speak to Nigerians in 30 seconds.
Thank you very much. I think what I want Nigerians to do is to seek to go for prevention. In fact, the theme this year is evidence is clear, invest in prevention. And we want all Nigerians to come and join the government, not just the government alone, join everyone, the faith-based group, the families, just like we've said here. The family should also start from home, and churches, schools should also do their own part. Media should also come in to help, because if we prevent this happening, then of course we'll not be talking of addiction, we'll not be talking of dependency, we'll not be talking of prosecution or any other thing. So prevention is better than cure. And I think that is the message to Nigerians.
Thank you very much, Shedrack Haruna, Secretary to the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency. Thank you so much for joining us for the conversation. Of course, we do appreciate Dr. Asekame Joy, Senior Registrar, Behavioral Medicine, National Hospital, Abuja. Thank you for being a part of it. Dr. Hope Omeza, Managing Director, VGADA Specialist Rehabilitation Center. Thank you very much for joining the conversation. And of course, Dr. Okonkwo Bartholomew Chukwuemeka, Senior Registrar, Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, Benin City. Thank you so much, Doctor. We do appreciate you. Of course, we'll bring you some other time and we'll get to hear much more from you. Thank you very much for your time. All right, so that's Good Morning Nigeria this Friday. Thank you so much. I'm Ian Ray John. Enjoy your weekend.
All right, and I'm Victor Azo. See you again on Monday.